Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is that you're listening to this. My name is Yvette Wanzu, and welcome back to the Walking with Wanzu podcast. I love to talk about things that I am going through, things that I have gone through and that I have learned from. And I just thought of creating a tiny little platform or a platform where you and I can come and through my own life experiences, I can be able to share some of the lessons that I have taken out of experiences that I have been through, but also I can be able to hear from other people so that I know that I am not just going through this thing called adulting and its craziness all by myself. How are you? How have you been? I hope life has been kind to you, has been treating you well. Now, the last time I was on here, I spoke about something. It's a conversation that I started, and it was around gender based violence. Now, as I said before, this is a huge, and very broad topic. I don't think there's any given number of conversations that you can have that can be able to summarize everything and bring this entire issue to a close. However, I want to try and expound on it and just share and be able to discuss a number of issues around it today. And I hope you enjoy. I hope this content resonates with you. And if you feel like there's someone who would really benefit from this conversation, please feel free to share. So, without further ado, grab a drink, get your snack and sit down and let's chop it up. Okay, so I think it would be wrong to talk about gender based violence without talking about what it is because I don't want to come on here and assume that everybody knows what it means. I think we all might have an idea of what it is. However, sometimes it's just good to be able to start a conversation based on a clear definition. And so I'm going to read two definitions, right? And the first one is gender based violence, also abbreviated as GBV, is the most pervasive yet least visible human rights violation in the world. It includes physical, sexual, mental, or economic harm inflicted on a person because of socially ascribed power imbalances between males and females. And now I'll go on to the next definition. And the next one is gender based violence is violence directed against a person because of that person's gender or violence that affects persons of a particular gender disproportionately. Now, my own understanding of the two definitions that I have read is this is violence that someone experiences, one because of them being a particular gender and because of the imbalances that are there between genders that we have. So that's why it says it's violence that affects persons of a particular gender disproportionately. So one gender could be feeling the effects much more than the other gender. It could be due to social constructs, it could be due to certain imbalances, and we'll get to that because, as I said, this is a huge conversation. And so being a woman, I will share from my own personal experience very heavily, just as my from my own experience as a woman. I will be picking bits and bobs, also sharing from some of the men that I have seen go through this. However, largely I think having experienced life as a woman, then that would be the best point of me for me to be able to speak on. Excuse me while you feel me reaching out for something. I'm reaching out for my wine. Mm. Think this is a good conversation to have as we sip and sip and talk. No, that's a vibe. I've never actually thought of that. You know how we have these paint places where you can go and sip and paint? It would be nice to organize a ladies sip and talk. You know what? That might actually be how we do our meet and greet. Let me know if you'd be interested. I would love to organize that. So anyway, what would gender-based violence feel like? I think that one thing that we can all agree with across board, whether you're a man or a woman, or whether you identify as trans, is you feel violated, right? And one of the things that I think we all owe each other as human beings is just to, what is it called, just to respect someone's, like, just common and basic decency, right? So if even if we are all accepting of who we are and how we choose to live our lives and move around, it's just good to the way you move, not to infringe on someone's rights. And when I think of gender based violence, the only word that constantly comes to mind is feeling violated, right? And this could happen in many ways. It could be physical harm, it could be sexual, it could be mental, or it could even be economic. Now, we've heard of homes where there are two people, two partners that are living together, and you might feel that then one partner might not be taking responsibility or their own part of, like, they may not be playing their part in the home as is required. Because I'm thinking that if two people come together and they're choosing to be partners and live together and even possibly raise a family, then there's certain economic responsibilities that fall on each party. And so if one is constantly walking away from their responsibilities, they're leaving everything to the other person, then that could be a cause, that could be a form of gender-based violence. The other one is mental. Now, I'm sure at one point in our lives, sadly so, some of us have gone through mental abuse. When you have a partner who gaslights you, a partner who's constantly talking you down, a partner who doesn't, I don't know, like, there's so many ways that you can be abused mentally, but usually I look at it as someone gaslighting you, someone talking down on you, someone belittling you. Like, they're very, sometimes it could seem very subtle, but it has a huge effect on you mentally. And so that's a form of gender based violence. We've even seen it in the workplace, where women have had instances where they say, they feel like they're belittled, they're viewed as the weaker sex. It's like we're not, it's like sometimes when women are in the corporate space or even in the workspace generally, they're not thought of as smart enough or capable enough or strong enough. And so, when as a woman you're confident in your capabilities and you know what you bring to the table, but you're met with belittling energy and condescending energy, and it's like, can you even really do it? Then that can be a form of gender-based violence. Another one is sexual, and this is so close to my heart, guys, because I live in Nairobi, Kenya, and walking down the street, especially in Nairobi city, in the CBD, the Central Business District, can be incredible. Like, it's so much because when I'm walking now, I'll speak about my own experiences, and I've spoken about this so many times, and I've even spoken about it on my Instagram as well. I've had instances where I am walking and I just feel like I'm not safe. Someone reaches out to touch me, or I'm met by catcalling and inappropriate comments. And sometimes, because as our African culture, we come from a very conservative culture, right? And sometimes people will throw in things like, what were you wearing? Or was it how you were dressed? But I think for those people who catcall and just move very inappropriately around women, especially women, they're just really ill-mannered people. I don't think it has anything to do with the person who's being violated. People just need to learn to contain themselves, right? So it's not about how you dress, it's not about your demeanor. I don't think you can tone down how attractive you are. If you look good, you look good, sis. And this also, I would like to reiterate the reverse, because as women, we're not, I mean, even biologically, we don't, some of us don't tend to be as muscular and as physically strong as men. And so most of the time we are seen as the ones who are vulnerable and more susceptible to getting hurt when it comes to gender-based violence. But also, as women, sometimes we also need to really check ourselves, because there are instances where sometimes you're trying to chat up a guy and you're being inappropriate. And I just want to say, sis, the same way you don't like it when someone is touching up on you or being inappropriate, sometimes men feel the same way. They might not just vocalize it, but I think just learning to be able to accord each other the respect that is deserved, and just learning the concept of personal space, because many of us, hey, we know nothing about personal space. So I think just when it comes to sexual assault and even physical assault, which I'm getting to in a moment, for sexual abuse, when it comes to gender-based violence, I think if we could all just learn to respect each other's personal space, know that women's bodies are not communal. It's not something that we are entitled to. No one owns anybody's body, and we just need to respect each other's personal space. I think when we do that, that's like that basic, what is it called, that basic concept of even just learning personal space is just a huge step in the right direction. Because when you just can't be touching people, reaching out for people, saying inappropriate things about how people look or how they're dressed, that could be, that in itself could be such a game changer. And I think another thing would be good would be calling it out. When you see someone saying something inappropriate or trying to be inappropriate with another person, you as someone who's watching it and someone who can see and knows that it's wrong, because you even see how the other person is feeling violated, call it out, stop it if you can, get reinforcement if you can. That would be good. Now, the last form of gender-based violence that I want to talk about, and this is definitely not the least, because unfortunately the list goes on and on. And if I want to talk about all of them, we could be here for days, guys. But we can only touch and go, and we can only speak about it so much. Is physical, right? And this is something that I have personally experienced. I have seen it in my home. I have seen it where I'm raised. Unfortunately, I lost my maternal grandmother to domestic violence. And I've seen my mom's siblings go through it. I have seen friends, I have seen family. And when you're in it, in that moment, you feel so bad, you feel so helpless. And that's you who's looking at what is happening to someone else, and I cannot even for the life of me begin to imagine what the victim is going through, like the person who that is being done to feels like. And so I just also just want to pause here and say that if you're in any relationship where someone is physically assaulting you, it could be something as subtle as, and I don't want to say as small, because no abuse is small. It could be something as subtle as someone pushing your head, or someone pointing their finger at you, or someone coming straight like in your face and trying to look like they wanna bump you in the head. It could be a slap, it could be, unfortunately, it could be um a punch. You really need to walk out of that situation, man, because that's how it starts. And I feel like when people do certain things and they see that there's no repercussions, right, it's like it's almost like it gives them permission to go further. And you always hear people say this, victims of gender-based violence will always say it started in a very subtle form. So it was a slap here and a smack here and a punch there, and then before you know it, someone is just heavy hitting you and just doing things that I don't even want to get into. And so, those are the different types of or forms of abuse that I could discuss today. I want to be able to talk about some of the effects of gender based violence, and I want to look at it from a very um, from the perspective of our children being a parent, and also from the perspective of a small person. So if you're older now, I want to take you back to the younger you, and I want to address the younger you, whether you have witnessed or unfortunately been a victim of domestic violence. I want to take you way, way back. And let's discuss, as we discuss these effects, I want you to try and take it back to how you felt, growing back and having experienced this or even seen it around you. And then now try and imagine that for the generations that are coming, the children that we have now, or the children that we're raising now, or the children that are around us, our nieces, our nephews, our children, right? Our neighbors' children. And let's talk about some of the effects. Let's bring it home. One of the first and very obvious effect of gender-based violence is an unstable home, because a home where frustration and anger is communicated through violence is not a stable home. It's not an environment that anyone would want to be in. And sometimes, because children can only do so much, first of all, children are not that strong. Children have nowhere to go. Children are depending on the parents to provide for them. They can really feel helpless. And no one wants to be in an unstable home, because now you feel like you're not taken care of. It's like you're not heard. And home is supposed to be a safe place for everybody. And when your home is a space where you experience violence, or even one of your parents, it could be your mom or your dad, and for most cases it's the mom who's experiencing the violence, it can be very hard on the children because the helplessness that you feel. And I've spoken to so many people who their moms have been victims of gender-based violence, or domestic violence. And the recurring story, or the recurring thing, that phrase that they always say is, I felt so helpless that I couldn't help my mom. So one of the effects of gender-based violence is an unstable home. And I don't want, and I refuse to believe that as grown-ups, that you want to come into life and get a life partner and start a home, and now you want to bring children into this situation and it's an unstable home. Nobody wants to feel like that. Nobody wants to experience that. Another thing, another effect of gender-based violence is instability in school. So what we all know, that home is the backbone of everything. So when things are not right at home, then things are even not right with you. So if you're not getting the care that you need, if you're feeling scared, if every time at home you feel like you're walking around eggshells, or the person who is violent towards their partner or towards people in the home, then your children's grades is affected, their demeanor is affected, and this child is walking around carrying so much. And so definitely in school they won't be at optimum, right? And so their performance is affected, how they move is affected. Another thing is your social life. We all know that we are social beings as human beings, so we need community, and community is everything. Because if you go, and sometimes we push this mindset, and especially as people, as young people in our generation, we feel like you can do bad all by yourself or good all by yourself. And I just feel like I'm a strong, and I never used to feel like this before, but over time I'm learning that community is everything. And so if your social life is affected, that means you like, life is too hard to bear it alone, right? Of course we have our Lord Jesus, and we have our beliefs and our faith, and something to hope, to believe in, is very important, to be able to anchor you, so that when life does what it does best sometimes, which is to whoop your ass, then you have that kind of foundation and backing, and your faith is not shaken, and you feel like, you feel hopeful, right? But there's also community, there's a sense of community, there's also having a social life, there's you connecting with other people outside of your family. And so when you're a victim of gender-based violence, sometimes some people isolate, some people want to hide, because sometimes maybe you're out here, you have bruises, you don't want to be seen, and it's like your social life is compromised, right? And that's another effect of gender-based violence. Another one is, and this is so close, like I could not stress this enough, is generational trauma. Guys, this needs to end with us. And I feel so strongly about this, because from last year and even up to this year, which is 2022, we've had endless cases of gender-based violence. And those are just the ones that have been brought to our attention, the cases that we don't hear about, those that don't make it to the news, those that we're not, people don't hear about, are so many. But it needs to start with us. We need to call out what the problem is. We need to find the solutions, and then we need to actively and consciously try to be able to stop it. Because if this doesn't stop with us, and we maybe our generation is not going to solve everything at once, but the process of identifying the problem and finding the solutions and constantly working through it is going to make such a huge difference for generations to come. I don't want us to keep passing on generational trauma. And then it gets to a point where it's like, oh, he hit her or she hit him. Oh, that's normal. People who love each other fight. It's not. Let's not normalize gender-based violence. There's nothing normal about it. There's nothing like there's no good that could possibly come out of it. But us refusing to call it out, us refusing to find solutions, us refusing to try and heal, is what is going to make us pass this on to our children and our children's children. And I refuse that for us. That is not our portion. So let's consciously try and find where did we go wrong. It could be our parents, it could be our grandparents, and then slowly try work our way towards solutions and also healing. And forgiveness is such a huge part of it, such a huge part of it. I myself am still trying to grasp the concept of forgiveness, because I well, forgiveness is it's difficult, it's difficult. And so generational trauma is a huge effect of gender-based violence. I think that that is the one effect that creates a ripple effect, and it's like it gives birth and it creates room and space for all these other things to happen. And so we can't come here and talk about the issue and talk about the problems and the effects and not come up with solutions. And so I want to come up and I want to share a few solutions that I think would be key for anyone who knows a victim of gender based violence, anyone who is, and anyone who has gone through it and is trying to heal from it. The first thing I would say would be to help, right? This is for the person who is seeing someone else experience it. Please never look at someone going through gender-based violence and turn the other, turn your head and say, well, that's none of my business. Not my how we throw around words like not my circus, not my monkey, or two people who love each other, you can never get in between. When someone is getting hurt, that's your cue to get in between. And we should never let it get to that. And so I just want to say, if you have experienced it, if you're seeing it, if it's something that's happening around you, please try and help. Try and talk to them. Try and see where the problem is coming in. If you can offer solutions, please do. And if you need to seek reinforcement, by all means get it. um Another thing is for the victim, right, and those who are going through it. And I am so sorry to anyone who's listening to this and has experienced this. Seek help. Seek help. And I know it's so hard when you're in it, and when you're in the thick of it, you can't see beyond. And I see people sometimes when you're on the outside looking in and you see someone going through something. It's so easy to back solutions and throw solutions around. But when you're in it, that's when you, because sometimes when you're in the thick of things, you don't even see beyond, right? Sometimes you're even scared to reach out and seek help. And so I just want to, this is me telling you, and this is me encouraging you and telling you, please seek help. That's a first step. When you reach out to someone who you trust and you feel safe with, and you can be able to tell them, hi, this is happening, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to move, I just know that I'm not okay, and I'm hurt, and this is happening to me. That's the first step, guys. That's the first step. And that's how you can be able to get help. It could be a child, it could be a parent, it could be your sister, it could be your friend who's going through this, it could even be your neighbor. And I just seek help. Seek help, right? If you feel like there's someone around you who you can trust, who you can talk to, please tell them what you're going through. There are so many resources out there and people out there who can be able to help you. But no one can come through for you and come to your aid if you don't let them in, if you don't seek out the help. Sometimes it takes you going through that particular thing to go out and seek the help that you need. And if just love yourself enough to just reach out and just get help. The other thing I would say is heal, guys. I personally know I come from a generation deeply rooted in domestic violence, right? I just mentioned that I lost my maternal grandmother to domestic violence. I have seen it materialize in my family and my extended family. It's not something that I would want for myself. I wouldn't want it for my mother, and I definitely, most definitely, would not want it for my daughter or anyone who's in my bloodline. um I would also not want it or wish it upon any female or any person that I know. And so I want to call upon us, especially those of us who are parents and are responsible for young ones, to heal. Seek out, if you need to go to therapy, if you need to find people and have conversations with them, please do that, but make healing your responsibility, so that in future you don't bleed on people who didn't cut you, or you don't meet and you're two people who are bleeding and now you want to cut each other to death. So let's heal. Let's make a point to be able to see some of the things that, some of the traumas that we're nursing, and then heal from it and make a conscious effort to try and be better. Because when you know better, honey, you do better. And then the last thing I would say is do better and encourage, do better, just a moment, do better and encourage healthy relationships, right? So let's make healthy relationships a norm. Now we're living in the day and age of social media, and some of the things that we see and some of the things that we consume are incredibly toxic. And whether that's not how you would want to live your life, whether you believe it or not, it normally reflects on you and it rubs off on you. And so be very keen on the things that you feed yourself, but also be very keen on the relationships that you nurture and that you encourage around you. Encourage loving relationships that allow people to extend grace to you and you extend grace to the other person. Draw the lines, have clear boundaries. Don't allow people to just be out here insulting you, assaulting you, taking advantage of you, gaslighting you, and think that it's okay. Love doesn't hurt. When you're working too hard, when it's painful all the time, when there's always tears and there's always fighting and there's strife and there's so much strain. I mean, why should love be so much work? Why? I know that relationships are work because as human beings, we're all going through life and we're all just trying to survive. And that's okay because everything has its ups and downs. But when it's detrimental to you, to your well being, to how you function as a human, I think that's something that you need to let go of. So let's push, even as older people, encourage us to see good relationships where there's communication, where there's mediation, when there's a misunderstanding, and let's pioneer good relationships. I'm not saying good relationships don't have issues. I'm just saying that it doesn't take violence to solve anything. And so I hope you've learned something from this episode. I know this was very heavy to talk about. It's been quite heavy for me too, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. And it's something that we need to talk about. We need to identify what the issues are. We need to see what the effects are. And then we need to come up with solutions. So from me to you, this is me extending love and saying this is a safe space for you to be able to come on here and share your experiences and share what it is that you're feeling and what it is that is going on in your mind. Some of the things that I really like to do is to vocalize my feelings. And so sometimes when I'm really going through it, I'll do a voice note. I'll take I'll dump my thoughts and emotions into something, and that helps me unpack it. And I hope that is what this space is for you. Um, Please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. It's Yvette Wanzu or Miss Wanzu on Instagram. Feel free to send me an email. It's tewanzu@gmail.com, or even send me a voice message on here and tell me what it is or which part of this episode that you resonated with. Please share this episode with someone who is going through it and could really benefit from the information that I have shared on here. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your love and support as always, and I will see you on the next one. Love and light, God's blessings, and bye bye.